Recording in progress.
Recording in
Excellent.
progress. All right,
A lot of
awesome.
polite computer voice.
So Michael, how did you first get involved in gym culture?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's a long story, but I'll attempt to be as brief as I can. Uh, I always wanted to have like a bodybuilder's body. Ever since, oh my goodness, going back to like 10, 11 years old, I was always fascinated by it. But I was like the bookworm, the drama kid, the shy gay nerd, and it felt like it wasn't something I could pursue. So all throughout my 20s, I kind of like covertly tried to work out in a way that wouldn't draw too much attention to myself, both at the gym, because I was afraid of the people who were in the gym, and that wouldn't draw the attention of the people around me that much because I was afraid of my friends and my peers judging me. So I was like dually in the closet. I was in the closet as gay at the gym, and I was in the closet as someone who wanted to be like a large, muscular type of person amongst my friends and my peers. So, and you can't do this by halves. Like, if you want to transform your body, you have to go all in on it because the body doesn't want to change generally. It wants to stay as it is. So, if you're looking to build up your muscle significantly, you need to be working very hard and you need to organize your lifestyle around it. It's kind of a monastic lifestyle, really. And around the time I turned 30, and I find a lot of people have this happen. Am I allowed to curse?
No.
No? All right.
Gently.
Gently. All right. Around the time I turned 30, I stopped giving a darn. And when I stopped giving a darn, I realized that if I wanted this to happen for me in this life, the time was now. And it was really important to me. It was a part of my authentic self that I had hidden away for quite some time. And I decided enough with that, and I got very serious about it. And over the course of my 30s, my body changed to better suit the person who I wanted to be and the desires that I felt. And like a miracle, a lot of the shame I felt really sort of floated away. And I'm a much happier person now than I was 10 years ago as a result. So yeah, I guess that's how I got into gym culture and lifting and so forth was to satisfy this deep-seated desire. So
you've been
make sense?
You've been in a number of gyms, and you've even been in some competitions, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did
Can
my
you
first.
Describe briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I described, all throughout my 20s, I was sort of working out half-heartedly because I explained why. As I said already, throughout my 20s, I was working out half-heartedly, and that was generally at university gyms because I did a BA, and then I did an MA, and then I did most of a PhD. So you always have gym access as part of your student fees. And then when I left my PhD program, I was very lucky to fall into some excellent powerlifting gyms here in Toronto, which probably are very intimidating and scary to people because they have a very sort of rough, hardcore, old school kind of feel, but which are actually very welcoming, very community oriented, and much less interested in fulfilling the narrow a vision of like the beach body, much more interested in like, oh wow, you've got your deadlift up to 405, let's see you get 450 before the end of the year, hooray, let's cheer you on. Or whatever, that's just to pick something from my own life. Whatever your particular specific goal may be, they're not interested in putting a very normative narrative onto you. If you, whatever you bring is what they're going to work with. And I did my first bodybuilding competition in 2019. And that was incredible because it was something I'd always wanted to do. And I used to have great anxiety that people in my life would discover that this was a dream I had. It was terrifying. And then even after I put that aside and I started working towards it, I'm not particularly like many physical pursuits. There is an element of sort of genetic giftedness. I don't have those genetic gifts. I'm not well suited to this pursuit, really. Or if I wish to excel at the professional level, I don't have it. in the same way that no matter how hard I might work at sprinting 100 meters, I am not going to get into the Olympics. It's just simply not on the cards. But as a devoted amateur, a passionate hobbyist, there are lower level regional competitions that are suitable for me. And I did one in 2019. And it was one of the proudest and happiest moments of my life. Like, it was something that I had longed for and dreamed for, and it felt like it was impossible. And then it felt like it was far, far away. And then it happened. I can't remember the rest of your question. Did I answer all parts of it?
No, that's okay. So so it sounds like, despite the fact that you're saying that you don't have a particular predisposition for it, and that you discovered gym culture and bodybuilding late, that you're suggesting that gym culture is for everyone. Do you think it is?
I absolutely, I passionately believe it is for everyone. And this is where we have to make a division between the professional. I have some qualms with calling it a sport, but let's call it a sport. The professional arena, and then the broader cultural practice. And in terms of the broader cultural practice, I passionately believe that anyone who is interested in learning the skill or making themselves stronger or building muscle ought to be welcomed, ought to be encouraged, ought to have their anxieties calmed. That matters a lot to me. And only a very tiny percentage of people have the rare mix of qualities that it takes to be professionally successful as a bodybuilder. But you don't need to be professionally successful as a bodybuilder. Like, that is not a prerequisite for a happy and fulfilled life. But sort of learning that you are capable of being stronger than you had imagined. It's incredible to see someone to teach someone, like, this is a deadlift, and have them doing it with a broomstick, because we got to make sure they get that hip hinge movement right before we load it with any weight. And then 6 months later, and they're picking up 225 pounds off the ground for the first time. That's such an amazing feeling. I'm so proud for them, and they are so proud of themselves, and rightly so. And with proper training and technique, people are capable of so much more than they first think. And I think that's really beautiful and exciting.
So you've described your vision of what gym culture could and should be. How would you describe gym culture as it is, and how it fits? To what extent does it fit with that vision?
Well, it's big. It's big is the thing. Gym culture is such a large umbrella term, and there are parts of it that are going to be really toxic and regressive, and there are parts of it that are going to be very normative. They're going to be very heteronormative. They're going to be very bodily normative. There are parts of it that are going to be transphobic. There are parts that are going to be fat phobic. There are parts of it that are going to be very nurturing, very encouraging, that are going to be welcoming of queer people, that are going to be welcoming of different body shapes and sizes. And it's almost like, well, I used to be in academia, and some of the people listening to this probably are familiar with that field. And it's kind of like asking about, could you describe academic culture? It's like, well, parts of it are real toxic and rotten, and parts of it are really rewarding and encouraging and doing important work in the world. And I feel the same is true with the gym culture. And so the trick of it is to find the parts that have value and that serve what you think is important. And, unfortunately, there are going to be a lot of gyms out there that are about getting yourself beach body ready. And, that's, if someone wants to do that, then more power to them. But people should not feel compelled to do that under any circumstances. So you want to find the gyms where it's like, okay, you want to do that. Here are the tools you need, versus you should want to do that. No good. And I realize I've kind of drifted from your question a little bit, and it's because it's such a large sphere that almost any description I would give would be true for part of it. I guess, if that makes sense.
Okay, so can you give me one example of how gym culture has shifted to be more inclusive in your experience? What's
really interesting is again, the powerlifting gym I described that I joined around the time I was leaving academia, it's very inclusive. There are, I mean, I'm a gay man in his 30s. I've gone to a lot of gay gyms around the world, and they are inclusive sometimes in a certain way. There's a certain very strict, I'll call it body fascism. That might seem like an overstatement, amongst gay men. And some of these gay gyms can really buy into it. But oftentimes there will be an allowance for more gender fluid or a wider variety of gender expressions and such there as well. But this powerlifting gym is not a gay gym, but there are plenty of gay people there. There are trans people there. There are people of many different races there. Most gyms are going to be male dominated spaces. Just doing a quick visual survey, we are making assumptions. But the powerlifting gym that I'm describing does feel more inclusive of people who are less masculine in their presentation, women and non-binary people and so forth, and explicitly inclusive in terms of various, like, you know, posting signs and symbols on the door, like your rainbow signs and your various things like that. So I like to believe that this is also one of the most elite powerlifting gyms in the world. Like, I'm a bodybuilder, and bodybuilding and powerlifting are not the same thing. And I'm actually part of a bodybuilding rump at the powerlifting gym, and we tease each other because the fine grains of the two pursuits are quite divergent. So even though they grow from the same root, they take off in different directions. So we tease each other. It's all very good natured. But this is one of the primary powerlifting gyms in North America. And the person with the highest Wilks score in Canada trains there. That's how powerlifting competitions are judged. It's a formula where you put in your deadlift, you put in your squat, you put in your bench, you put in your body weight, and it spits out a number. So if you're 125 pounds, you get way more points for bench pressing 200 pounds than if you're 250 pounds, because the person who's heavier will be stronger. But the ultimate goal is to be as strong as possible. That's a tangent. Basically, my point being, this is a premier gym. This is a big deal gym, and it's a very inclusive space, and it goes out of its way to make itself inclusive. Whereas your suburban good lives and so forth, they're probably going to vary depending on the community that they serve and the management team and the decisions that they might make, but they're probably going to be a little bit more depersonalized, corporatized, assuming certain things about the clientele. You're here to lose weight. You're here to look a certain way that might not be made about these other gyms. I hope that makes sense. I went on a big tangent there.
And so what's one piece of advice to somebody who is currently at perhaps a gym right now and is looking for a gym culture shift? What would you recommend to them?
Well, if you're at your gym and you're finding it's not a community or a culture that you are particularly comfortable with or that you want to be part of, that's a difficult question, because in a lot of parts of the world, there might only be a small number of gyms to choose from. Like if you're in a small city or a big town, there might only be one or two gyms. The town I grew up in, we didn't have a gym. The nearest one was 150 kilometers away. So like as a teenager, I did not learn how to lift weights because there was no place for it to happen. With that said, if you're in a large city, you are going to be somewhat in luck. I would actually suggest that the gyms that might seem most intimidating to the uninitiated are probably the ones that you might want to investigate, because they're going to be the ones that aren't chain gyms. They're not going to be corporate. They're going to be more passionate. And this might not seem immediately intuitive, but I feel like the passion is going to be what generates the inclusive community. Passionate people want to welcome in others. Maybe you can think of it as a drive to convert. I would hope that that's not the case. It's rather a drive to like please understand, and what we're going to welcome you in, and we're going to give you what you need to thrive. that's probably my advice, is to look for the smaller gyms, the older gyms, the independent gyms. That's where alternatives to the more stifling or restrictive mainstream might be.
Okay, and then last question is, how has the inclusive gym culture that you've sought and found affected your practice?
Oh, wow. It's affected my practice in a bunch of ways. I recall when we had a very long lockdown here in Toronto. It was about 8 months and change. And when this powerlifting gym I described finally reopened, and the first day I went back, I saw Sean, the owner, and he saw me and he went, Mikey. And I went, Sean. And I was like, do we hug? And I was like, I'm vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. Huge hugs. Like, and it's really difficult to it's really difficult to quite capture in words how important it is to have that feeling of belonging and community. It's so nourishing for the soul. And ultimately, why would anyone do this if it wasn't good for your soul? Like we live in this sort of like sick society where people's bodies are never going to be right, and they're never going to be good enough, and there's always going to be something wrong with them. And our society wants you to feel bad about your body. That is one of the things society wants from us, is to feel bad about our body. And if you find this place where people feel good about their body and they want you to feel good about your body too, and you're all working together on this project, this mutual project of feeling good about your embodiment and your physicality and what you are capable of as an embodied person. And that's so lovely. And that's what I try to carry forward, like in my own practice. I am always going to be positive. I am always going to be encouraging. I have several clients who are preparing for bodybuilding shows right now, and that's very tough. That's very, like, you have to follow a very strict regimen for 3-4 months perhaps, where, like, you know, you're at, in the case of me, when I was doing my first show prep, I was at a friend's baby shower. There was a beautiful lemon cake, which is one of my favorites, and I was like, I cannot have this. Sucks. But when the show was over, it was like, now it's time for cake. So it's like a temporary sacrifice. And it was something that I was doing. I wanted to do it. And again, it led to one of the happiest and proudest and best days of my life. So it was worth sacrificing the lemon cake temporarily. But when I have clients doing the same thing, I want to communicate to them, yeah, if this is the goal and you're serious about it and you really want this, like you really, really, really want this, you are going to have to make those hard sacrifices, and you're going to be that guy that brought the Tupperware to the party because you have to eat your chicken and rice. You can't eat the pizza that everyone ordered. But if that's not the specific goal, or even if that is the specific goal and they falter and they fall off and they mess up, you can't expect perfection out of anyone. So I always want to be encouraging and positive about it. I always want to be like, okay, all right, we'll pick ourselves up, we'll do better tomorrow. Or like, you know, is this actually something that you really want to be doing? And if it's not, well, why don't we talk about what it is you want to be doing, and we'll serve that. Like, I always want to make sure that it's joyful, it's positive, it's nourishing, it's nurturing. Those are the things that I want, and that's hopefully the energy that I bring. I really try.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.